Hey guys, this is Brett Young, Taylor Young, and Rod Erb, and you're tuned in to the Be Extraordinary podcast with Erb and Young. Real conversations about business, leadership, and personal development.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us on Inside Episode. We're joined, myself, Mr. Rod Erb, and Miss Anna Diaz. Special episode.
Morning.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Let me frame this up real quick, because this is a special time we get to spend, and I think you're going to learn a lot, and learn a lot that you probably think you know that you don't know, but more importantly, the goal is to not only hear a little bit about your story and how you're here, why you're here, so on and so forth, but also, just as importantly, what you're doing right now, because you're having a ton of success, and you're standing out amongst standouts, and we want to learn from not only your mindset and how you approach the day and the weeks and the months, but what you're doing and how you're doing it. And so we can learn from it and we can implement it into our own businesses. So 16 years old.
Gosh, still blows me away, man.
We were just talking off the mic about how, Rod and I, we were just talking about how we perceive, like, oh, you're doing these crazy big things, but you're so young. And you're like, well, if you think about it, I've been around insurance for essentially longer than I've been around
she just
insurance.
said, no, you don't realize, Rod. I've been in the field for this many years. I'm thinking,
so tell
I'm thinking, what are you saying? And the reference is, well, no, we've come to work with my mom for 15 years, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my mom has been in the insurance field for years and years, as we know, and as we were little, she was kind of in a field where she took her kids to work, and she was really the only person doing servicing and things like that, and so me and my sister Julie, we were probably like 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 at this time. We would make a little fort under her desk. When she privacy would kind of go in the back, there was like a little TV room. But there was a point where she needed help with the phones. And so me and my sister would take turns rotating. How can I help you? Or what do you need help with? We kind of write it down. And
How
put it
old
on
would you
hold.
have been?
Maybe 6 at this point, maybe
Oh
5
my
or 6.
gosh.
We were just,
Well, so you're 16. You don't sound 16. You sound 30.
Yeah.
That's why.
So when you were 6, you must have sounded 16 or young. I mean, but you had to sound young at that young age, and you were just there'd be a call on hold. Mm-hmm. You'd pick it up, hit hold, the old school phone.
Yep.
And you'd just say, "How can I help you?"
Yep.
That was it.
Mm-hmm.
Take messages.
And then you'd hit hold again. Okay, we'll be right back with you. And you'd hold, and you'd write it down. You'd hand it to mom, who's probably got another phone, and she's ripping on stuff.
Yeah. And the funny thing is the clients actually knew we were children, and they kind of laughed about it because they kind of knew that, their mom must be the only person in the room right now, or in the insurance, in this business right now. So it was kind of a little bit like, it's just kind of crazy to think we were literally children helping our mom. But at the end of the day, look where we are now, because we really started from 4, and now me and my sister are old enough now to where we can be answering phones and actually helping the clients. But at that point, answer, how can I help you, put them on hold, write a little note, give it to my mom, and then she'd be good from there.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I mean, so when you think about just the amount of reps and hours that you have on the phones, it's probably a lot more than you can imagine because of when you started.
You know what I resonate with so strongly is we're talking a lot about the marketing that's going on right now. And I think a lot of people are concerned that they're not good enough to market at the pace to which we all know it takes. And I hear this all the time. It's like, well, I just, what would you say? What would you do? And my coaching, my position, I mean, let me say this a different way. My experience has always been any rep counts. Every rep counts. Even the worst reps count. And it's like when you stack those and stack those and stack those from 4 or 6 or 8 to 16, the reason I think you're so effective and you sound so confident and so credible is because you've gotten credit for everything you've done from a embarrassingly young age, right? I mean, I think about that. I'm like, where do those stories come from? But that's what I think about. That blows me away. So I relate it to what's going on right now. It's like any rep is a rep that counts to get you to where you're.
So it's kind of 10 years, right? You have 10 years into essentially the practice of answering a phone, asking how somebody's doing, how you can help them, and potentially trying to solve their problem. So,
and I wonder too, when you used to pick that phone up off hold, was there any introduction like, hey, this is Jessica's daughter, I'm 6. Was there any of that?
So
to where you had to have a little bit of time to just calm them or take down their guard?
So we never mentioned our age, but they kind of assumed. But we'd actually answer and we'd say, "Hi, my name is Anna," or Julie would say, "My name is Julie. It's a great day at the place that she worked at. How can I help you?" And then the client was like, "Oh my goodness, like how are you?" And they're like, most of them said, "How old are you?" So we'd like, "We're old enough." We'd always say that, "We're old enough," even though we weren't. But yeah, that's kind of how
There's
that,
another
how that
clue.
went.
Yeah, that's incredible.
That's a mindset that says it doesn't matter how old I am. I'm here to help you. And
right.
Would you rather
how
can I help
this
you?
phone not get answered? Because that's what's going to happen.
And tell me again. Tell me again what you say. It's a great day.
It's a great day at Allen Insurance. My name is Anna. How can I help you?
So what I think about too is you were coached on how can I help you. People say, "Can I help you?" And you leave people out to say no. But when you say, "How can I help you?" you force them an answer. So you had to be coached up on that at a young age too, which I think is brilliant. So many people just miss that. Anyway.
And I think it's also hearing our mom also. It's like when you're just building a fort on her desk, you do hear the conversation. She was always like, "How can I help you?" So I think we kind of developed into that. How can I help you? And now we're saying, "How can I help you?" You know, it's just crazy.
That's so cool. What a cool story that you and your sister share, and now that you're both working together. And I also wanted to share, you're going to school. I mean, we talked about Florida Virtual School. You're in school, you're working full time, and you kind of have these two tracks that you're able to learn knowledge, as we call it in the classroom, and then you're able to get the activity knowledge of what it actually means to work within an industry and a company with other people, talking to other people. So it's just like really cool, unique. It's inspiring to see how ahead you are than most are, but then to be reminded that you've been at this quite a bit.
Very inspiring.
I also want to set the table of one of the driving reasons we're having this conversation, other than, we certainly enjoy the time together being around you and learning, is to say, objectively, you're achieving things that no one within this ecosystem within that role has achieved. And just to set the table of that perspective, we've been harping on the importance of Google reviews for a decade. I mean, we've done different campaigns. We've promoted it. We've done trainings on it. We've done bonus structures. I mean, right? We've kind of, and we feel like we did a pretty good job up into this point, compared to the rest of the industry. That said, all of last year, as a global relationship management and service experience,
35 plus people at the time.
Well, and yes, correct, for everyone. We did, I think, a little over, I think it was 42 5-star reviews all of last year. That means that's 12 months, 42. And you look at that and we go, okay, that's a couple of months. Okay, like at least you got some reviews. To set the table, in the last 60 days, you've done 39. And not to mention, one of those weeks was Thanksgiving. The other week, you're out with the flu, right? So, like, that number for you before we got on air, you were kind of like, hey, it hasn't been a great November for me, because I think, what did you do in October? Like 29 or something?
Yeah.
That is 29. Outstanding.
So just to know that that's in 2 months. So you've almost done more reviews than the entire company did in 12 months last year in 2 months. And for the listener, right, whether it's internal or external, like, there's no like, hey, Mr. Customer, I'll send you a $5 gift card or a $25 gift card if you give. Like, this is true influence, that somebody has to want to give you that review based on the job that you're doing for them, or the rapport you've built with them, or the relationship that you built with them. So I think it's an important caveat. There's nothing behind the scenes, here that's going on.
Such a great way to frame that. And I mean, you speak in my love language, right? Build rapport, sensory acuity, be 16 years old and be able to command a conversation. I mean that with love, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you are 16 years old. You command a phone conversation with someone you've either never talked to, someone that's got history with us, but probably someone you've never talked to. You develop rapport. And in the end, like you said, Taylor, inject the influence to get them to respond in the way of a 5-star review. I mean, to me, it's like, whatever you say, I'm going to do whatever it's like I do whatever you say.
So bring us into that. Like, let's talk about how-tos. First of all, where is this drive coming in this sole focus of your abilities on the phones? What do you think is important when you take a call? What are kind of the things that you do on a call? First and foremost, give us the basics as very much to how you answer the phone, how you navigate the conversation. Just give us a glimpse on what it means to, when I call in Urban Young and I get Anna Diaz, what do I experience?
Yeah, so I answered the phone call asking how their day was, how their day's going, how their week has been, and obviously building that rapport and letting the client know that I'm there for them, that I'm actually caring for them, not just on their insurance need. I'm also caring for them as a person, just building that rapport. And of course, whenever they call in, they want something done for their insurance policy, and of course, helping them on that service, letting them know, listen, this might take a few days maybe, but I'll get back with you. I'll kind of keep you in the loop with how that's going, and then kind of go from there.
So relationship building, rapport building, before we get into how can I help you today, how are you? And you can sense that a little bit with how somebody's calling in. You might get somebody that's very direct. Maybe you can feel a little bit angry. You can, do you feel that when you answer the phone? Do some calls take a little bit more time to get to the insurance stuff, and then sometimes you jump right into it, or how do you process that?
Typically, yes. There's some clients that you can kind of tell are having not the best week or not the best day, and I think that they always appreciate when you actually are putting into an effort into caring for them. A lot of the time, a client's like having a really bad week or a really bad day, and I just kind of tell them, I'm here for you. Like, do you want to talk about it? A lot of the time, that's kind of what kind of drags the call in a little bit, not too exaggerative, but it's, them knowing someone's here for me, because maybe in their life they don't have someone there for them. So me being that person, although yes, I'm in the insurance, I'm in an agency, I'm not here to, do that, but I am at the same time. So just letting them know that you're there for them and that you're, there for whatever that they need to talk about, then that's great too.
Do you go into a call like what you just said? You gave the kind of intro, but do you have a goal in mind for the call? Is your goal to get to that conversation of a 5-star review? Number one, is that a goal? Number two, do you have a plan? Or do you just let your good energy kind of dictate the way the call goes, knowing that if it goes well long enough, you will have probably earned the right to ask for the 5-star review? How do you sort that out when you're approaching a dial or getting ready to pick up a call?
Yeah, so typically when a client calls in, it's funny because the service team actually calls the service monoline machine the opportunity machine. So every single time a monoline client calls in, we know that's an opportunity, and that's kind of how I see it. So when a client calls in, I'm like, okay, I'll give them the great service. I'll kind of be there for them for their insurance needs. And then, at the end, I've kind of typically expect a 5-star review or maybe an auto or maybe a flood. So it's not expecting it. It's just kind of, the flow of the conversation. But of course, when you take a call, you're kind of expecting one of those things to come out of it.
It's cool too, I'm reminded, right? You're doing all unlicensed work. And so you, in these capacities, can't be the expert, right? By definition, you're not talking about the insurance stuff. You are not the expert. So you are almost forced to use, as you would say, the good energy, the rapport, being there for them on a person-to-person level, getting them to the right place, making sure it gets done in the right way, and then potentially following up on that to make sure it went well. So in that regard, you've implemented, and the team's implemented, more of an outbound approach in the last couple months. Yes, the phones are ringing off the hook. They do daily, right? And you answer. I mean, how many calls do you think you answer a day when you work the entire day?
Probably 10 to 15, maybe 20 a day.
Yeah. So 20 a day.
You field coming inbound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which, it's a big number. And I know you've had days where you've answered 46, 50 calls where we're looking like, hey, look, that's too many.
Yeah.
Let's try to get that down so you can spend the quality of time. So with that said, how has your 5-star reviews, where have they come from? Have they been more inbound? Have they been more outbound? When does that ask occur? At what part of the process? And then also, like, where is it most effective, do you feel like?
Yes. So typically, in my experience, it's mainly come from the outbound dials, which it just says a lot to me because it's
that's the 29? Or that's most of yours?
Yeah.
I don't know if I realized that.
I didn't either.
I'm sorry I didn't interrupt you, but
No,
I just had to make sure I was listening.
And 29 was just for October. I just want to clarify.
Right. So you're pursuing those dials to get those. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, it's okay.
But I just got blown away. I thought those were people calling in.
Maybe 2 or 3, but honestly, most of them are clients that I have related with and helped with on a different level before with their insurance policy. And so I'll follow up and I'll call them later and ask how that process has been for them. And of course, only, I do this with clients that I've had good conversations with. We've kind of related on that level. So I'll call them back. How was that process for you? All the time they say it was great. It was awesome. So I'm like, would you mind leaving me a 5-star review? And they typically will.
So you field a call, get a task. work on something, either handle it yourself if it's not licensed, coordinate with the team if it requires license work, make sure it gets done. Then do you set a follow-up task for yourself to make that outbound call at the appropriate time?
Yes.
Meaning, do you give it a few days? Do you give it a week? What's kind of the balance? Do you call them right away when it's done? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I kind of use an example with the cancellation processes. So when a client calls in, they want to cancel their policy, if they sold the home example, or even if they kind of obtained coverage elsewhere, I still will kind of call them and follow up on it. They send their email on why they want to cancel. We process that. Typically, I do those within a business day, maybe two. I'll call them back, hey, just so you know, I sent this form out, just so that we're kind of touching base and I'm keeping them in the loop of what I'm doing for them. They understand, they sign the form, I get it back, I process it that same day. I process it, I call them back, hey, your refund's going to be coming in the next probably week or two. So just, in that process. And then at that point, I typically ask for a 5-star review.
How long do those calls take?
Typically 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a clue. Because what I keep thinking of is that people cancel their policies.
Yeah.
Right? They move, they sell the home, they go with another agency. It's part of the business. And that work has to be done. You have to field the cancellation form. You have to get it to the insurance company. You have to make sure it's signed, right? That has to be done. That's part of the work. But it just seems that there's a clue that's shown up for me is that extra 2 minutes is not a big deal, right? But it goes such a long way for the outcome that you're after, also the prospect and the customer you're serving, because they go, oh, wow, she didn't have to make that call. Right. I'm canceling their policy with her. And then now there's an ask, and oh, yeah, sure, I'll do a 5-star review, so it's no lost opportunity.
Well, and no lost opportunity on a major scale, right? I mean, people are transient, right? In a lot of cases, especially a market this volatile, if they find something a little bit better or perceive better, and they don't have a chance to get to somebody that can express to them the value they're getting aside from the price, then they're jumping, right? But what I hear is, we say it a lot on the commercial side, or we have over the years. It's like when you're about to lose the business, the way you lose the business says everything about how you will proceed forward, right? I mean, if I lose the business this year and I do it the right way, with class, with etiquette, I've earned the right to ask you for it again next year. So it's like, I just think about all those opportunities where you're getting 5-star reviews on cancellations. There's no question that if those individuals ever thought about coming back or looking in the market, there's no question that they would call back again because of the example, that you're setting.
Well, and I'll even further for the audience, like these 5-star reviews are like real reviews, right? Like you see people writing, Anna Diaz helped me with this, this, and this. She was very thoughtful. Like these aren't just 5-star reviews with no caption, with no copy. These are actually real reviews of real people because you've built that connection.
So, but they have the ability to just leave a review, right?
Yeah, you could just write 5 stars.
The reason that they don't is because you're telling them, you're influencing to them how to leave a 5-star review. Mention my name.
Yeah, bring us into that. How do you, if you get to the point where we've caught us up, you've taken care of someone, you've reached out to them, you've followed up, you've connected, and in this 2-minute call, you ask, how was the experience? And if they say good, you say, hey, would you be willing to leave me a 5-star review? What are you asking of them, and then what happens from there?
Yeah, so typically I will kind of ask them how their process has been at that point. And then, once we get that kind of cleared up, I'll be like, would you mind leaving me that 5-star review? If they say yes, I'll be like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you an email to make it seamless for you. All you have to do is click this link and just mention my name, and you can say whatever else you want if you'd like. Typically at that point, I'll go on Google, and there's typically like a paragraph or maybe my name and a little bit of a sentence after that. But it's never just my name. It's typically the client, emphasizing what service I did for them. So
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I go back to, there's no lost opportunity. That's like an infinite mindset and game that you don't even realize the goodwill that you're building with people that will eventually need to buy insurance again. Will think of probably you first before they even think of Urban Young, because you've made that level of connection, which is really cool. Which is really, really cool.
What are you most excited about? So we just came off this 2-month campaign. It'll end today, and the KPIs for the cruise and whatnot that we've had going on for 2 months. Following that 2 months of activity, well, in your case, following that 2 months of just flat out results, what are you most excited about going into the holidays and into the new calendar year?
Yeah, so I'm just most excited about, the clients. Of course, they're going to call back and they're going to have a really good experience. And of course, I'm also appreciative of that the team was kind of able to set aside time for these outbound dials. And then now we get this amazing cruise that we're going to have so much fun on, of course, if we end up meeting that standard. But I think that's, kind of what I'm the most excited about.
That's not scripted. I mean, you could be excited about anything. I'm just curious.
Yeah, for sure.
I continue to listen to you, and I think to a listener, you could be like, well, she's just been coached up on how to talk, what to talk about, how to talk about it. But I can promise you none of that's happened. I just hear you speak like such a seasoned, mature, credible. It is no surprise to me that you've had the success you've had. And I have to come back to just the organic energy, the good intention, it's almost like an innocence that just says, I'm going to handle what I'm here to handle. I have an agenda is what I hear. And based on the way that I approach it, my good energy, I'm just in awe that you have the command of a conversation or a setting like you do. I know I don't say it enough, but I want you to know I think it, and this is as good a place as any. I'm just blown away. I'm just blown away.
Well, I was going to say it wasn't our coaching because our coaching isn't that good, but you do have a heck of a mom. And if this is being played externally, like we set out a 60-day, what we would KPI, key performance indicators, is an activity-based goal, right? And every team decided for themselves,
4 different teams,
their own goals, what activity was at the top of the charts that were going to help them, achieve their goals and their outcomes that they're after. And it's an activity goal. But then when you see that activity turn into results, it's not just activity for activity's sake. Right. This is activity that the amount of reps that you're getting in the process that you've shared with us is actually getting outcomes, which I think isn't cool. I had one more question. Upset clients. Do you deal with them? How do you deal with them? Have you ever had somebody that was upset for all good reasons, called very upset, maybe at a 10 out of 10? And how do you take those people from upset to less upset to potentially getting and leaving a review or getting something out of it, if you will, after you serve their needs?
Yes, so there is definitely a handful of some angry clients, which is totally fine. Typically, we all know they get their rate increase, and they're very upset about that. I'm
upset when I get my rate increase, and I'm in the business.
Yeah, totally. So typically, the number one thing that we always try to let them know is that we're not the insurance company. We're the agent. We work with so many other insurance carrier companies, and so we can shop that policy for them. We can kind of go above to kind of shop them instead of them having to go out and call companies to get those quotes. So at that point, they're kind of a little bit lowered in their frustration. But other than that, they kind of go from there and they say, well, she's trying to help me. It's not her fault. We're just trying to do the best that we can. But if we're not talking about rate increases, just kind of angry clients in general, just kind of relating with them, just being extra nice to them, of course, giving them that service. Typically, they'll kind of lower down as it goes, just meeting them where they're at is kind of the number one thing. And then, whatever they need for their insurance.
So you're not resisting it. You're not meeting anger with anger.
No.
You're listening and letting them drive, get it out.
Yes.
Ease the tension, try to lower the guard, make a joke, tell them we're on our side.
Absolutely.
Part of that I think about is sometimes we feel like we're on this side of the table and the customer's on this side of the table. But if you can tell the customer and go over to their side of the table, they're going to be more receptive to what you have to say. And you seem like you just explained that, but do that naturally, is to say, hey, it's not 1 versus 1 here.
Right.
Let me come to your side of the table and let's have a conversation on a potential solution.
Right.
That's very cool. We can learn from that.
So 35 in 2 months. So 35 times you ask someone for a 5-star review, and
I think it's 38.
Yeah,
sorry.
And they said yes. 29 and 6?
29.9, isn't it?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so.
So 36. Or 38, excuse me. So 38 times you said, how was your experience after you handled the business? They got what they wanted first. 38 times you said, if we did good, however you say it. 38 times somebody said yes. How many times did you ask over 60 days? How many times did you have the conversation that didn't yield a 5-star review? Do you know that number?
I believe, I know I counted them up. Last month I did 160, I believe, outbound dials in total, which every single one asking for that 5-star review, whether it's a voicemail or connecting with them. And then this month, I believe it was kind of around that number, maybe 140, 150. I'm not sure. I'm horrible at math, so I'm not sure what that final number is. But of course, you're going to get more no's than you are yeses, but the yeses kind of outweigh.
So about 300,
20%
350 calls roughly in 2 months, yielding 38.
Well, she was sick.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm not counting.
Yeah, we will take a week off.
So I would say, yeah. So if you take 1 month of 160 and you take 29 reviews, what is that? 25, 30%? I'm bad at math too. Somebody will do it.
Yeah.
But
You're missing Brett.
a ratio is appearing.
Yeah,
and
ratios,
when you ask that question, I didn't expect you to know your numbers. Quite frankly, I'm just going to say it. The fact that you know your numbers is another clue, right? You know your numbers, you'll know your results, and now a ratio appears. So you know, okay, well, if I want to duplicate that result
Or double it.
then I just have to make that amount of dials. And then you can watch that ratio improve as you get better, which is really fun. And it doesn't matter what seat you're in.
Dude,
if you are a sales or you're a marketer and everyone's in sales and marketing, you have to know your numbers and know your ratios.
And it's so strong, too, because it's like 60 days is a long enough sample size, right? You've made hundreds of dials, and you know what that has yielded. If you weren't happy with 38, which is outstanding. I'm not projecting this, but I'm just saying, like, to someone that sat through 60 days of a KPI and wasn't happy with the result, after 60 days could go, man, I've made 340 dials. I've got 38 of something to show for it. I wanted 70. Cool. Then you know how many dials you need to make to get 70, which to me is like you said, it's a huge clue, but it's impressive as hell that you know your numbers. So I remain in awe. One other thing that I want to ask to a 16-year-old, only because I have a 15 and a 21, Snapchat or TikTok?
TikTok.
Okay, so it's part 2. During the day when you're here versus when you're at home, what do you do when you're home? What is your are you flipping on TikTok like my kids are?
Typically, yes, but I'm also watching TV. But most of the time, I mean,
what do you do in your spare time, I guess is what I was getting at.
Yeah, my spare time, typically, I did mostly volleyball last year. Never really played on a team, but I do like to kind of play volleyball for fun, beach volleyball. I like to watch TikTok. I like to clean. I like to cook. I love to go shopping. That's probably, like, you ask any young girl, and that's like their number one thing to do is spend money on shopping clothes. But my favorite is probably cooking or volleyball.
So awesome. How much time a day is spent on social media? Because I think there's another clue here. Because
also, like, in honesty, like, when you're here at work, you seem very engaged and busy.
Yes.
I don't often see you on the phone a bunch, and I know you probably are at times, and maybe you could tell me or not. I haven't seen it as much as you would expect from somebody who's the youngest in the organization. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You would expect them to be on their phone the most, but I actually probably see you on the phone the least.
Yeah,
as far as your smartphone.
Mm-hmm. Typically, my phone is honestly right next to me, but I'm, like, so focused and I love my job, so I'm just, like, having fun working, honestly. And so I'm typically only on my phone at, like, lunchtime or maybe once or twice throughout the day.
So 2 hours a day, 1 hour a day, less than an hour, 3 hours. I'm just curious.
You're looking for parenting advice.
I mean, help me.
Probably 3, 4, or 5, maybe 6.
We'll look at the data on her smartphone.
Yeah.
They let you know. We'll get to the bottom. We'll get that. No, I do want to ask this, and this is relatable to screen time and time. This is the last thing, and then we'll wrap this up.
I got one more after
you. Got one more. Well, this is the last thing for me. I promise. I said that last time because this is too good. But you think about a time in the day, right? And for all of us, it's our number one excuse. I don't have time for that. I already have this workload because, we're sitting here talking about 5-star reviews, and I could hear a listener being like, oh, yeah, but that's all Anna does. All she does is do 5-star reviews.
It'd be really easy to follow.
Couldn't be further from the truth. Like, you're actually one of those people that has team members continuously shout them out. And the only way you do that is by having a teammate's back, by pulling a heavy workload, by doing what you say you're going to do.
Giving something better than you
found.
Right,
and I know for multiple times when we're down a couple people are out sick, they're on vacation, you'll take such a massive brunt of the workload that is completely uneven. but you'll still find ways, it seems, to get these outbound dials and these outcomes achieved when you'd have every excuse to say, hey, there's all these reasons that I can't.
Yes.
So break it down, like just in your perception, in your role, your personal experience, where do you find the time to do the extra? Where do you find the time to do the extra 2 minutes 160 times a month?
Yeah. So what I typically do is I actually break it up. I actually have a list of clients that I call. So I'll typically do like 10 in the morning, and then 10 in the evening, and then kind of just in between those, I just do the regular work. And in my mind, I'm not thinking I'm doing something extra. I'm kind of adding it to what I have to do on a day-to-day basis. And in my mind, I'm just kind of going through every task and everything that I have to do just day by day. So it's not something in my mind that I'm just adding on to my workload. I'm like, another thing to do. It's just another opportunity to me. So I kind of actually appreciate the outbound dials rather than adding it on to a list of work.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what blows me away more is just the authenticity of the answer, or it just seems innocent, but I know it's intentional. These are the conversations that I'm having a lot of with myself. It's like it just you're getting you know what's priority number one. These dials, you start with these dials, right? You start with them in the morning. Anyway, I'm in awe.
Well, I will
help
say,
help me out.
Well, it just starts with limiting beliefs, right? I think the beauty of where you sit in your metabolic age, we were joking about that, right? Or your biological age is 16. But I think your life experience and your maturity is well beyond the years. As if we know that, I'm sure the listener will know that because you can just tell. That said, there almost seems to me is something as we age and we go through more life experience, we somehow can become a little bit more cynical, a little bit more. We have limiting beliefs that come into our mind from different life experiences that aren't necessarily true, like how much time we have in the day, our priorities that we say are important. And it seems like you have this zest for the role and this opportunity that you see where you don't see it as to do. You see it as an opportunity. All this stuff that you're training your mind and your mindset at a very young age, and what that means to how much more you can accomplish and how much more you can become. So I would just encourage you to continue that and double down on that. And I'm inspired by that because it makes me step back and think, man, I wonder how many limiting beliefs that I'm holding about things in my role or things on the team's role that just simply aren't true because I had this little bit of an experience at one point in my life and now I'm relating it to this, and they're completely unrelated. They have nothing to do with it, right? And so that's when I think you say the innocence and you harp on the youth. Because I was the youngest, I was, so I was always like at some point, and I have a younger sister, but at some point I played with all my older cousins in sports and stuff, and I was always beat up on, but I was like, man, at some point I'm not the youngest. Like at some point I have just as much experience as the other guys. I've just been doing it longer, and that's the way I perceive you, is in that way.
Street cred, man. It give you street
it's
cred.
earned.
Yeah.
It's earned. It's not given.
Earned.
What you're doing is extraordinary for somebody that's had 20 years of professional experience in an industry and a craft. And I will say this, and I make no mistakes about it. If you look at other people in our industry and insurance agencies, somebody that's been in a role for 20 years, the results you're getting blow those people away. And it just so happens that you happen to be 16 years old. So, it's not impressive because you're 16. Believe it. It's impressive because it's impressive. That's and right. We can all learn from it regardless of age.
100%. Last question for me. Do you like to read?
It's not my favorite, but I will read a book.
Are you reading anything right now?
I'm not.
Not? Okay. No. I didn't want to put you on the spot to say, what book are you reading? I was just curious. So if that's the case, which is, again, there's no right or wrong answer here. What do you credit this rhythm, success? What do you credit this to? What do you credit this pace, this phase? And I don't think it's a phase. I think it's a 10-year continuance of what you've learned. What do you credit this success to?
I do credit it to my mom, a lot of it to my mom. She definitely
Shout out Jessica.
Yes, she definitely has shaped me and my sister into such, blossoming women, and I can see that as a 16-year-old myself. So a lot of it, like I said, being at such a young age, hearing her, She has done just everything to just shape us into who we are today. And of course, you guys in my team, they literally give me just life every day. I love coming into work. They give me motivation to make that dial. Alex and Lindsay, shout out to you guys too. They are literally my best friends at work. We're always like, one more call, 2 more calls, 3. So it's just them. And of course, my mom, of course, you guys just definitely give me that motivation to keep going in the insurance industry, which is a very crazy industry to be in right now in the marketplace. So
yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
And I just got emotional because your mom, she's that for a lot of people, but more importantly for you guys. And she's an excuse killer, and she's killed the excuses for you, and for you to have a gratitude towards that is really, really unique. Because when I perceive the teenage experience, it's more of like, no, my parents don't know what they're talking about. But to see the level of respect and admiration that you have for your mom is it's goals.
Yeah, she's my bestie.
Yeah, it's goals for sure.
True. Well said.
Well said. Yeah. Well, guys, I mean, I'll tell you this. We're going to share this internally, but we're definitely sharing this externally because that conversation was too good, and I think the world needs to hear it. So, Anna Diaz, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, as always.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Good to be back.
Until next time.
Yeah, until next time.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.